What's up, Canada? This is Etienne from Signatures, and I'm just checking in on you. Do you know what day it is today? It is Wednesday, April 29th. Happy Hump Day. Wanted to start out by offering some good news and some info for our Western Canadian small businesses out there. Today, London Drugs announced that they're offering shelf space in their stores for small businesses affected by COVID-19. So a good opportunity there that's hopefully of help to some of you. Their application is very short and straightforward. It's on their website, londondrugs.com. So again, for small businesses affected by COVID-19 in Western Canada, this is a really good opportunity for you guys. I wanted to say thank you to Lexi from Dobbin Design for joining us on the program yesterday. It's always a pleasure hearing from her and hearing about her successes with her awesome small business and sharing her insights as usual. If you missed out on the live fun, you can view all of the episodes of Just Checking In on our YouTube channel by tapping the link in our bio. Hello to you guys that have joined us. I see a lot of you, a lot of familiar faces again. Today, our guest is someone I love chatting with. She's always super delightful, and she's also exceptionally talented in her craft. We are super lucky to have her at some of our shows, and we're lucky to have her join us on the program today. Her name is Jen Manuell. She is the fisheye sister herself, and so let's bring her in now. Hello.
Hey, I think I made it.
You made it. I saw your makeshift prop up for the phone.
Yeah, it works.
It works great. I see your whole face in frame.
Well, I realized the other day after you asked me that I don't have any kind of one of those phone holder things because video is not really my thing.
Well, we're getting you out of your comfort zone today, so we appreciate you doing that.
Thanks.
So all things considered, how are you doing?
You know what? I'm doing well. I would say I'm good. Things are good. Like things are, a lot better than they were a few weeks ago when, everything was really up in the air. Like stuff's still up in the air, but I've kind of reached some degree of peace and acceptance with it, and I'm able to kind of balance my news consumption, so
Right.
that helps. But I still want to be informed, but I'm just not quite as obsessed with watching the news.
Okay, that's good. Balance is good. Balance is key. So Jen, we have a really large Western Canadian audience on our Instagram. So probably a lot of folks that aren't necessarily familiar with you and your work. So maybe can we start with getting a bit of background on you and what you make and how
Sure.
you started?
Okay.
Because it's a great story.
So I've been making stuff for my whole life. For 20 years, over 20 years now, I started rug hooking. And through that process, I learned how to dye wool. And color has always been like an important part of what I do and what I make and the things that I choose to work with. And so about 6 years ago, I guess, my sister and I decided in August, usually we camp in the summertime, but this particular year, the weather was crappy. Every weekend it rained. And so we didn't camp. And she called me up one day. She's like, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm making a quilt. You should come over and help me." And so she did, and we worked for the weekend. And at the end of the weekend, we had a big queen size quilt top sewn together. Nice. And then the next weekend, we did another quilt top. And then the next weekend, we did another quilt top. And she was kind of, a little bit disenfranchised, maybe, I guess, with her job. And so was I.
Right.
And so we're like, this is really fun. Maybe we could do this and get paid. We could sell our quilts and people would buy them. And we wouldn't have to do our jobs that were not so fun. Right. And so we decided that we would start this business together. And because I have always used wool, it was kind of the natural thing to choose.
Yeah.
You know, color is like 90% of the equation. And by using the wool, I have full color control. I only have to work with the colors that I like, not what somebody else thinks is nice.
Yeah.
So what I do, sorry, I'm totally off topic. Just reel me back in.
Okay.
So I make pillows and quilts mostly
Yeah.
using wool fabric, much of which I over dye. So in a collection of pillows, I might have like 100 fabrics that I'm using. So every piece is unique. I sew all the bits together and then I quilt it. I've got a long arm machine, but I'm just freehand doodling the design myself.
Yeah, and it's really an exceptional product if you look at it up close, which I've had the pleasure to do at many shows.
Yeah.
Um, so has this pandemic affected your business at all in one way or another?
Well, yes, obviously. You know, been crunching lots of numbers over the last few weeks, like lots of artists, I'm sure, and showrunners.
Yeah.
And last year, exactly 70%, like 70.1% of my sales last year were at in-person sale.
Wow.
And so like 29.9 were online.
Yeah.
So that's obviously, you know, a little worrying. But I had already decided, you know, the one, I guess the benefit to me about the way that everything's kind of unfolded in the timeline is I had already decided to take a break from the spring shows this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I fortunately wasn't living in limbo going, are they going to run? Aren't they going to run? Are they going to run? Aren't they going to run? So I didn't have to worry about that because I already wasn't doing them. And so I got a pass for like a couple of weeks there.
Right.
And then when the timeline was shifting, like further and further along, then I'm like, oh no, I need to start panicking too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because this is not ending soon.
For sure. And thank you for sharing that number because it really puts into perspective how important, these shows are for a lot of the makers out there.
Well, especially people like me. Well, not that there's anybody like me, everybody's unique, but people that have a similar kind of a product that you really need to touch it and like see it. Like there's no picture that looks as good as the real thing.
No, you
Even
can't
if
get
you're the
that.
best photographer, which I am not. But you also need to be able to touch it. And, you know, my pieces are very complicated. They take a long time. And so they're not inexpensive. And it's pretty hard. It's a hard sell to a total stranger.
Right. Yeah. So the tangibility is key.
Yes. But on the flip side, you know, I've got a lot of loyal fans.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I've been, you know, very pleasantly surprised and, you know, appreciative and thrilled and excited at how they have kind of, you know, been very supportive over the last, you know, month or so. Like I've done 2 newsletters kind of since the pandemic, which was always part of my plan was to send out a monthly newsletter. Last year I sent out 3.
Wow.
Yeah. But this year I've already sent out 3.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all good. I sent out a newsletter on the weekend. I did a shop update on Monday. The response was great.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, that's because I have this like core audience, I guess, of people who know my work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome to hear that you're still feeling the love.
Yeah. Well, I don't, as I said to somebody a couple of weeks ago, I don't need to find thousands and thousands of people to buy my work. Like I don't have the popcorn item. Like, you know, I only need to, you know, have, you know, maybe a little bit bigger than a handful, like an armful of like really, really great clients.
That's awesome. And behind the scenes, like you do all the marketing yourself and all
I'm
that.
I'm a one woman band. It's just me. So I do the photos, I do the website, I edit the photos, I, you know, make all of the product, every zipper, every stitch, every seam, every decision is mine.
That's awesome.
So that's why the newsletter, always seems to go down on the priority list.
For sure. Um, but, speaks to your creative mind, I guess.
Well, and my control freak personality, I guess.
I was browsing your Instagram this morning, and I came across a recent post uh, where you posted a photo of a cushion that you made that had 324 1-inch squares.
Oh, yeah.
So, for a layman like me, can you explain how that's done? Because
Okay.
that seems like remarkably complex.
It is, and it's not. There is a little bit of a cheat. So I don't cut all of those squares and have them in a pile and fit them together like a jigsaw puzzle.
Oh,
Not with that style. I do with the 2-inch squares. I do that. I've got stacks of 2-inch
wow.
squares and I arrange them until I think it looks good and then I sew them together.
Got it.
With these, I arrange them into strips, with like long 1-inch strips, and
Okay.
I create a pleasing arrangement that's the length I need. So for that cushion, it's an 18-inch cushion. I needed 20 inches because it does shrink as it gets sewn together. And then I've got seam allowance and all of that I need to consider. So I need 20-inch pieces. So I create a whole bunch of those arrangements. And then I start slicing them into 1-inch pieces. And then I arrange and rearrange till that looks good. And then
Very
sometimes I cut out squares because I don't like them and I substituted another square.
Aha. The control freak pops out yet again.
Well, if it's going to bother me,
For sure.
it could bother somebody else too.
Yeah. So I've also noticed the fancy stitches
Mm-hmm.
being sort of part of your work this year.
I've
It
done
seems like
them for the. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
no, it's okay. It just seems like a very sort of creative outlet for you. I know as a whole, your business is rooted in creativity, but I'm just wondering, like, is this your way of sort of having fun during this pandemic? Yeah.
It is. And I've been making them for just over 2 years now. Um, but I make very few of them because they take forever.
I see.
Um, the price tag really should be like triple for
I
the
think a
amount of
lot of
time that you
makers can
take.
relate to that.
But for me, like a couple of years ago, I was really feeling like I didn't have a hobby.
Hmm.
When you turn your hobby into your job, you kind of want for a hobby, or I do, because,
Of course.
I can't just sit and watch TV unless what's happening is very visually stimulating. Like Downton Abbey, for example, I did nothing except for watch that show because the costuming and everything was so amazing, as you know. But so I wanted something that I could work on in the evenings where I could go upstairs and sit on the couch and not feel bad about all of the stuff that was downstairs that wasn't finished or needed to get done or whatever. So I started making these cushions. But because of the new reality,
Yeah.
I have less pressure about how much work I need to create this year. Um, and so I do have a bit of, you know, extra time. And so I've been making those to try to, meditatively, work out some concerns.
Mhm.
And then also have something, fun to do. They are like people love them. I did a shop update the other day with 6 and they all were gone in 20 minutes.
Oh wow.
And so far I've made as many this year already as I did all of last year, which is not very many. It's 13. So it's not it's by far, my least made item.
Wow. But still a labor of love, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Well, and
Who
if they
made?
weren't if I didn't think they were pretty, I wouldn't make them.
Of course.
And when I no longer find them fun to make, I won't make them anymore either.
Gotcha.
So.
Just wanted to quickly say hello to my mother who has tuned into the live stream. Hi, Mom.
Oh, hi, Mom. I
Um,
haven't even been watching to see who's on. I
yeah,
know there's a few people that I know that are on, but I kind of, since we started talking, I stopped looking.
Well, it's always fun getting like the audience of the person I'm interviewing join our lives, because it's usually I get like the recurring characters, but it's always great to see fresh faces tuning in. So we appreciate that. Who made the mug that you're drinking out of, Jen?
Oh,
It looks
this is,
handmade.
I don't know if she's watching or not because I didn't see your name
Oh,
pop
it's
up,
got your
but
logo
this
on
is,
it.
it does. It's got my logo. And this is a woman in Huntsville named Karen Gray, who's obviously a potter.
Yeah,
And she made it for me and gave it to me as a gift,
that is
which
beautiful.
was which is very lovely
Mhm.
of her. And so, three cheers to her. I think her Instagram is the Potter's Studio and Gallery.
Cool. Big shout out to her.
Yeah.
What do you love most about that artisan community? Because you've been out west now. You've done Vancouver and Edmonton, and so you've probably met a lot of really fun people out there. But what's best about being part of that community?
I think what the best thing about being part of that community is that it is a group of people who understand all of the extra things that are on your list of things to do that go beyond just making pretty things.
Mm, big
It's
truth.
not, and so, people think, oh, it must be fun. You get to travel and, you make your stuff and people come and they buy it. Like, that must be really great. And yeah, it is great. Don't
Yeah,
get me wrong.
yeah,
But there's like a lot of other, challenges that come alongside that. And, the maker community gets that. So
totally.
you don't have to explain, and you can be like, oh my god, you won't believe what just happened. And and they, can commiserate with you. And
For sure. Yeah, that's really a cool aspect of it. It's almost like a secret club, but not at the same time. I don't know.
mm-hmm. Like, it's not closed off. Like,
Yeah, exactly.
we
Exactly.
readily welcome in, new members.
Fresh.
But I think it's a side of things that people, unless you're in it, you don't really understand it, because
Makes
it
sense.
is a little bit like a carnival, right? That
Mhm.
goes from town to town. And although there's lots of people that have been doing this for way longer than me. I think I'm in my fifth year. So 4.5 years of doing this as my full-time gig. And it's so funny how the same people pop up over and over again. And, they can be your next door neighbor at one show. And then, 5 shows later, they're right across the aisle from you. And then a few shows after that, they're behind you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's fun because you really get people that you talk to the most at a show are the people who are right around you.
Yeah, it's our little traveling circus of amazingly talented creatives. Do you remember your first big show? It was, you said you've
Yeah,
been doing
I do.
it for 5 years. Is it
Yeah.
was it one of ours? I can't remember.
No, but that was one of yours was my okay. So this is the story. So first big show was Spring One of a Kind.
Mm.
I gave my notice in October. I left my job in January. And in March, we did the Spring One of a Kind, my sister and I together.
Right.
And then that summer, my sister decided that, maybe being a portfolio manager, isn't so bad after all. And so she went back to her career. I decided that the only thing scarier than doing this on my own was having to go back and get a job.
Ooh.
And so I stuck it out. So the first big show I did on my own was the Signatures Ottawa show.
Yes, and I remember because you had to get up super early one morning
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
do TV with us.
Yes, that was my first live TV.
And we wrapped up the host, Sarah Freemark, in one of your giant quilts.
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good
Yeah,
times.
that's fun.
Have there been any like giant learning experiences since those first couple of big shows?
So many. you know, when I reflect back on it, and my sister and I had this conversation about like 6 months or 8 months ago, and I'm like, when we started, we were so dumb. We didn't know anything. Like, we knew we didn't know a lot, but we thought we knew more than we did.
Right.
But I don't know, like I couldn't define like what the single biggest thing was. One of the things that I've learned, like because of where I live where I live, which is 2.5 hours north of Toronto.
Right.
And you know, my work is so dependent on my equipment. If my sewing machine isn't working, I can't sew.
Mm-hmm.
Or if my fancy iron stops working,
Oh,
my work doesn't look the same if I have to use a normal iron. Um,
interesting.
and so, you know, when my iron went down, I'm like, it's going to take like probably like a week or 10 days to turn that around. And that's a week or 10 days I'm making zero money.
Yeah.
So I ordered a second iron. And then my iron got fixed. And at the time I was thinking, well, I can always sell one after. And then by the time I got it back, I'm like, no, you don't sell that. You keep it. And then when your iron breaks, you just open up the
Wow.
cupboard and you pull out the other one and you carry on. And so this last year I bought a new sewing machine. And then not last year, like a year and a half ago, I bought a new machine
Mm-hmm.
and then tried it out, made sure I loved it. And then 4 months after that, I bought a second of the exact same machine.
Wow.
And that way it's seamless. I don't have to, you know, try and remember what the settings are or, you know, which foot I need, or everything is just, you know, somebody could change my machines in the middle of the night and I wouldn't know the difference.
Cool. It's like your instrument.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Very cool. I wanted
I
to
don't
talk
have a
about,
second long arm though. I only have one of those.
right. Right. You should probably get that insured or something.
Well, it is insured, but I have to say, like my long arm, it is not the fanciest one. It's very basic. It's a very good make though, and every single thing that has gone wrong with it, I've been able to repair it myself. And
Sorry,
the
I
most
feel really
expensive
dumb.
part I think was about $20.
I feel really dumb because I thought you were referring to your actual arm for a second.
Oh no, my long arm quilting machine. Sorry.
That's a huge fail on my part. We'll cut that out as the YouTube version of this.
Oh, that's okay. I still like you even though you made that foolish error.
Cut. So back to shows. I wanted to ask you because I love how passionate you are about color. And a lot of us at Signatures, Ruth and I are big fans of color too. Do you find that, because like your booth design is just like overflowing with colors and they're all arranged in a certain pattern. Do you find that affects the psychology of shoppers? Are they drawn in more by it?
You know, call me stupid, but I don't really like to think too much about the psychology of the buying process. Like I don't I don't really like to sell my work. Like I like people to buy it, but I
Right.
don't like to sell it. I want it to sell itself. I want the people that buy it to love it and bring it home and be thrilled every day for, you know, the rest of their lives that they
Or
have it.
yeah.
And to love it as much or more, you know, in 10 years as they did the day they bought it. And so I'm not really out to convince anybody that they should be buying a particular piece or any piece. Like,
Mhm.
I know that
Yeah.
that's
Well, no, I
a
mean
little
not
weird,
everyone's
but
not everyone's born a salesman. Let's put it that way.
no, I don't. I'm just me.
For sure.
So sometimes I say embarrassing things or trip when I'm on my way to the back room to get something or whatever, but
There's a
that's
really
okay.
sweet there's a really sweet comment that just came in. It says your colors are a magnet, and then we see the amazing workmanship and design.
Oh, how nice.
That's great. Keep those comments coming. Um, let's take a look at some questions that were sent in. There were a
Okay.
few. So the first one, oh, and to the people that, I don't know if you know this, but when you post like a question sticker on your story, do we get a lot of spam. I don't know
Okay.
how people do it, but to the people spamming our question sticker, please stop. Oh yes, a few of the people out there want to know the origin of your company name,
Okay.
Fish Sisters. I'm sure you've told the story many times, but
I
once.
have, and it's funny because I know I need to do like a little story thing on my Instagram and save it as a highlight, but I just haven't yet. It's on the list. It's not at the top yet.
Of course.
So Fish Eye Sisters. So years ago, I started designing things in rug hooking that people wanted to buy, like patterns and things like that. And I started teaching, and so I needed to come up with a little business name. And my surname is very unusual spelling, so I didn't just want to be Jen Manuell because people would never find me.
Right.
And um, so I decided that I would call the business Fisheye Rugs after my grandma, who was an artist, and she was a rug hooker too. And when we were little kids, she would give us the fisheye, like the evil eye, the stink eye. And I was the youngest of three girls, and I just thought it was a funny face. And we'd be like, "Grandma, show us your fisheye, show us your fisheye,"
Uh-huh.
not really knowing that when she did, it was not good. Like, because my grandma was old. She was like in her 40s when my mom was born.
Oh wow.
So so she was like an old grandma. She wasn't like a young, running around grandma.
Right. Right. But her legacy
So
is
so Fish Eye Rugs in honor of her. And then when Sandra and I created this business, we were like talked about all kinds of names. And then one day we're like, we're making this way too hard. Why don't we just take that fish eye, which is catchy, and nix the rugs and add sisters, and then it's not defined. Like, we can do quilting now, and maybe in a few years we'll decide to do something different, and we will still be able to use the same name.
very cool. It's a wonderful brand, and the logo I love. Was that designed by you, if my memory serves me correctly? Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a fish head logo. I don't have anything really close by that I can show you, but it was a different kind of a clip art, like a vintage newspaper kind of a black and white image of a fish with a really big eye that I use for fish eye rugs. And so we decided to redesign that. And I like the idea of it looking like a lino cut thing.
Yeah.
So very simple, very graphic, and easy enough. I could design it myself.
That's awesome. Next question. Excuse me. How does it feel to have your work throughout Canada?
I don't know, like exciting, flattering. I feel like very fortunate that I basically make what I want to make, and I can find enough people who will buy it that I get to keep making more. um, it's exciting. But really for me, it's like it's great that people want to buy my work, but for me, the most fun really is the making of the work.
That's very cool. Um, I wanted to ask you because would it be safe to say that you're sort of living out your dream now with Fish Eye Sisters?
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. And I wanted to do it for a long time, but I was always just too chicken.
Right. So my question to you is, what advice would you give to those people out there who are too scared to take the leap, who might be stuck in a mundane job and are looking for a creative way to restart their career? What would you tell them?
Well, I think a lot of things I would tell them, but
Yeah.
because the key ones are, make sure that you know as much as you think you can find out about what you're doing. Like, so you have to have a really good base of knowledge in whatever skill you're going to be, exploiting.
Gotcha.
Because you have to feel confident in that, because there's so many other things to not feel confident about as you go forward. The other thing is to try and invest in whatever equipment you are going to need beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
And to try and save like as much money as you can beforehand. So for me, we decided like a year before I quit my job that that's what we were going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And, I had been, my plan in my head was that I would, I really cut back my expenses, and that I was going to have enough money that I'd be able to live myself for a year after I stopped without having
To
to
worry about.
need an income from the business.
Yeah.
But it didn't turn out quite like that, because when you start a business, you're just hemorrhaging money. Everything costs money.
Yeah.
You want labels printed, that costs money. You want bags printed, that costs money, because you have to get plates made, and that costs like whatever, $150 to get the plates made so you can get your bags printed. I can't remember how much money we spent on labels. You have to get inventory. You have to get, equipment that you thought you needed, but or that you didn't have or didn't realize you needed. Building a booth is expensive. Trying to figure all that out. Lights, shelving, transportation. Like it's really never ending. And we were pretty lucky in that the first year when I was still working, we did a little local Saturday market on the streets of a little side street in downtown Huntsville. And we were able to sell our quilts there from people that just happened to be walking by on their way to breakfast. They were not the same price tag as they are now, but that gave us confidence that if we can sell these quilts on a side street on a Saturday morning in Huntsville to somebody who was just on their way to the bank, then maybe other people will buy them too. And so it was, because I never had a retail job, except for I did work at Kohl's for about 2 months over Christmas one year. Even just talking to people in the booth, like that's a skill that I needed to figure out.
For sure.
Like, what do you say to people?
Yeah. And so many people. There's so many different types of characters that roll through these shows. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Which is fun. Like, mostly fun.
Of course.
99% fun.
I'll take it. This question here asks, how big was the biggest pillow you've ever made?
Oh, well, the biggest ones I'm making right now are 15 by 40. That's the long bolster size. But I was just actually, I think 2 days ago, thinking I might make some like Euro shams. So like 26 by 26.
Nice.
And I would sell them in pairs so people could have them like on their bed.
Cool. Well, I'll be happy to test them out at shows.
Okay. In my little back corner of my booth.
Oh, for sure.
A pillow and a blanket.
That sounds amazing. Another question. What's the best part about living in the Muskokas? Maybe explain to the people out west what's so special about the Muskokas.
Well, it's a very popular summer, cottage tourist destination. It's about where I live is about 2.5 hours north of Toronto. Mm-hmm. So I'm close enough to Toronto that I can go there very easily. And even, if I needed to go there and pick something up, I could go there and back in the same day. What I really love about it is that where I live, I'm about an hour from North Bay. And so if I'm flying anywhere, I can drive to North Bay Airport and fly from there. And it only takes me an hour to get there. And the parking is only $7 a day. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
It's just nice up here. There's lots of trees. There's water. It's just a nice, I don't know. It's nature.
Yeah. It helps. I'm sure it helps with the creative part of your work.
Well, there's fewer distractions. Like,
fewer distractions. That's
once I'm at home, like it's very easy for me to stay here. Like I finally went grocery shopping yesterday for the first time in 3.5 weeks.
Oh wow.
And now I'm fine with that. Like I don't usually go that long in between trips to town, but it's not uncommon for me to like go once a week or once every 10 days or 2 weeks.
Interesting. A new question just came in. They're saying, love your creations. Where do you find or where do you get your inspiration from?
Well, I think the color inspiration just comes from what I see on my walls. Like I'm not a person who takes a photograph and then tries to replicate the colors in that photograph. it's just very intuitive and very like visual. Like I go, oh, well, maybe I should make some red pillows. And so I'll start pulling red wools off my shelves, and then, I'll add, maybe some pale bluey gray to it and go, oh, does that look better or does that look worse? And then I slowly amass my, big long train of colors, and then I go from there. As far as the design motifs, those are just simple shapes.
Simplicity
So
does go a long way.
the shapes, the designs themselves are simple. The colors are a little more complicated.
For sure. Um, well, I could chat with you for hours, I'm sure, but we've got to wrap things up here. You probably have a busy day ahead. I keep forgetting that you're on East Coast time, so it's afternoon for you.
Yeah, it's only 1:37. Yeah, today I am. The next couple of days, I'm going to be trying to wrap up a couple of custom orders, and then I'm dedicating the month of May to experimenting.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
I figure I've got time.
Yeah, and maybe we should encourage our maker fans out there to do the same. You never know
Well,
what you'll discover about yourself.
there's less of a need to have like the stockpile, right?
Exactly.
Like obviously you need to have some stock, but
for sure.
I don't anticipate requiring as much as I had last year. So
okay. So Jen, how can the people out there support Fish Eye Sisters right
now? You can follow me on Instagram at Fish Eye Sisters. It's basically the only social media platform I use. So just liking my posts, leaving comments is always nice. Sharing my work with a friend who might be looking for some art. I would have to say, like, color is everything, really.
Everything.
Like, you can have the best technique in the world, but if your colors are unattractive, unfortunately, you know what that means.
We are a very visual creatures. Well, once again, Jen, always a pleasure. Thank you so much, for doing this.
This is actually way less painful than I thought it would be.
Oh yeah, we try to keep things as informal as we can.
Yeah.
So hopefully I get to see you in some capacity in the fall.
I hope so. I'm, crossing all my fingers and toes, but.
For sure. Well, until then, all the best to you.
All the best to you too. Bye.
Keep experimenting, keep creating. Take care. Thanks for everyone for tuning in.
Thanks. Bye-bye.